Hi, thanks for joining me today. Today, I am making a baseball bat tumbler. I have wanted to make this forever, and it's actually not very easy to find these double-walled insulated tumblers in a Pilsner glass shape, which is what I'm using. To make this look like a wooden baseball bat, I will be doing the wood grain technique on it with alcohol ink. I was just showing you a couple of the wood toned alcohol inks that I have. This set is listed down below. I wanted to make it lighter in color because that's how bats used to be. As of fairly recently, you can find them in darker wood colors, but traditionally they're this sort of blonde wood color. So that's what I'm using, and I'm using a very cheap 1-inch chip brush. So for this technique, you want to find like the cheapest, stiffest bristled chip brush that you can. And that is what is going to eventually create the lines, the kind of striations that make it look like wood grain. You can see here how I'm doing the technique. I just put a stripe of the alcohol ink and then I use my chip brush to kind of work it back and forth, always going in the same direction, of course, because that's how wood grain would be. And I really like the size of these stripes that this 1-inch chip brush is making. You could use a larger chip brush, of course, that would make larger sort of wood grain, but I really like using this size for wood grain on things like this tumbler. I just keep doing this around the entire cup until I'm satisfied. I will go back and adjust some areas. Of course, you need to be careful because when you put alcohol ink over alcohol ink, it essentially dissolves the ink that was already there. So you can end up with kind of bald spots. So you do want to be careful. Because I am picking the brush up at times, it makes it kind of fling alcohol ink. So you do want to make sure that your workspace, yourself, anything you care about in the general vicinity is protected because you will have little alcohol ink splatters everywhere. So that's all done, and I'm really happy with the way this has turned out. I really like it. Kitschy family, you know me well enough by now to know that something is going to go sideways with this, and boy does it ever. I really don't know what I was pointing out here. It was a while ago that I took video of this, so I have no clue. Sorry. Who's out of shot? I don't know what you're talking about. No one's out of shot. Where'd all my hard work go? This was a sad, sad moment. I let the alcohol ink sit well over 24 hours. Only then did I clear coat it to seal in the alcohol ink. After I sprayed it, it started to almost look like it bubbled up and it just ran everywhere. I mean, it was like the cup was crying wood. I was so sad. Because this cup was white to begin with, I didn't base paint it. While I did sand it down, the surface wasn't really matte like it would have been if I had used my matte white spray paint or matte white acrylic paint. So I feel like the wood grain wasn't as intense as it normally would have been because the surface was a little bit too shiny. So since I had to spray alcohol on it and wipe everything off and start over, I thought I would go ahead and base paint it this time. I used a lot of the blonde wood color alcohol ink, and I didn't know if I'd have enough to do this entire cup again, so I went with a darker color. Most people don't, but I think I should have cleaned my brush. It would have had much wider areas when I painted on the alcohol ink, like it did the first time. I also think it has to do with the fact that the surface was matte. So it seems like there are pros and cons to doing it both ways. I was actually watching a premiere and was in the live chat while doing this, so I do take breaks now and again to type on my iPad. Sorry. This time I did not seal the alcohol ink, but it did sit for 48 hours. At that point, it's ready for its first coat of epoxy resin. I'm using my Speed Dry from MNG Supply Co. And I was indeed terrified to put the resin on. Like I said, it sat for 48 hours, but still I was really concerned. It's all good though. Everything turned out just fine. I do like how the look of the wood grain deepened when I added the resin on top. Here I am, popping bubbles. This will spin and cure for 4 hours, and then we're ready for the next step, which is going to be decals. I designed these decals and had them custom printed. They are UV DTF. And I took my inspiration from these San Francisco Giants City Connect jerseys you see there. That is Matt Chapman's jersey. Chappie might be one of my favorites. And I also made this. This is Willie Mays' number 24. He was one of the most influential and amazing people in baseball. He was a pioneer, an amazing player, and just faced incredible adversity but came out on top. Here's a clip.
There's a long drive, way back in center field, way back, it is.
He passed away last year, 2 days before being honored at Rickwood Field in Birmingham, Alabama. It was where he got his start. Much love to our forever Giant and the Say Hey Kid. It took me forever to find the proper placement for this decal, but the decal is straight, yet the cup is curved and tapered. I had to be careful and make sure I placed it on the straightest part of the cup I could find so that it didn't end up looking wonky. I've said it before about UV DTF decals, but where it lands, it lives. So I had to make damn sure this was where I wanted it to be before I took off the backing. This is in real time, so you can see just how slowly I apply these. It's painfully slow, but you have to go really slowly to make sure that you don't mess any of it up. This stuff cracks really easily. It looks fantastic against the wood grain, but I did get several wrinkles and some bubbles. And yes, the taco technique is the technical term. Seriously though, I'm gonna need some tacos pretty quickly here. We have a place here called Birria Boys, and they make the best tacos. It's so random because it's literally a taco place inside of a gas station. But no joke, these are some of the best tacos I've ever had. I didn't keep this one in real time for you. You already had to suffer through that once. When I get to this G, I end up making slits in the carrier sheet so that it lays flat. You could also cut the G off and put it on separately after you've finished. You can see it's in the very curved part, so it doesn't want to lay flat. I, however, don't have the skill to put that thing back in the right spot. So I prefer to just leave it whole and cut the slits and then have it lay flat that way. The narrow part there is where the bat grip tape would go. So now I have to figure that out. Now it's time to take some measurements where I want to put the grip tape at. And I just want to make sure that I have long enough pieces. I went ahead and cut out the grip tape on my Cricut, and I need to weed all of this out now. I also do a little decal in the holographic orange up there. I don't actually end up using it. I will, you'll see later, need to do another final coat of resin on my tumbler, and I'll explain why when I get there. So I may actually put this on the bottom at that point. And I don't use the stencil vinyl at all. I completely changed course with that one. Sometimes I have a vision in my head of what I want it to look like, and when I get there, I can tell it's not going to look like that. So, you know, you have to change direction sometimes and sort of roll with it, and that's what I end up doing. This vinyl is so hard to weed. The end of my weeding tool kept going through the backing. The backing isn't very thick, and I think that's the problem. So I couldn't pull these up to save my life. I was so annoyed. After a few inappropriate words, I'm done weeding, and I'm going in with this sort of dark orange, kind of a pumpkin orange color on the bottom. It's called Harvest Orange, and it's just a regular matte acrylic paint. You can use any paint you want to. I do have to do a couple of coats on this because it's not super pigmented and it's a little bit transparent. Originally, I was going to paint the bottom black, use the stencil vinyl, do orange around that, pull up the stencil, and then put in the decal in the holographic orange, but I wasn't feeling it. I'm taping off the bottom because what I decided to do is I decided to glitter it. In the Tumbler world, we call this giving it a glitter booty. I just wanted to say the word booty in my video. I'm using my art glitter glue, and I just pour a little bit into this dish and use a nice fluffy brush to apply it. I want to give it a nice generous but even coat, and the fluffy brushes do this really well. I'm adding some paint into it as well, just to give a little extra coverage. I figure it can't hurt. After I give it a good coat with a painting motion, I go back in and I pounce. That creates a little bit of texture in the glue, and it helps the glitter adhere better. I'm using a fine orange holographic glitter here. You could really use any orange holographic you wanted to. It doesn't even need to be holographic, in fact, but hello, extra sparkle, so I'm not passing that up. Glitter is life. After I get that nicely covered, I will go in and pat down the glitter to make it nice and smooth. I let that dry for about 45 minutes to an hour, and then I remove the electrical tape. This booty actually had a different design on it, and there's extra paint left over underneath where the tape was, so I'm just taking that off using a water wipe. It comes off really easily. It's time to get those holographic pieces of grip tape around the thinner portion of this cup, and wow, this was such a pain in the ass. I could not get it to lay flat because of the curvature. No matter what I did, it didn't work.
6.5 hours later.
When I tell you this took me forever, it felt like it took forever. I actually was there almost an hour trying to mess around with this. I finally decided, because this was holographic, I wasn't going to be able to manipulate it enough to make it lay the way I wanted, and I was just going to have to deal with it. So I actually make the fact that it's crooked part of the tumbler design. I sort of end up highlighting it. I'm going in and very carefully applying binding potion to seal this in. I don't want the ends of this to end up coming up once I apply resin. And I do actually go over this a second time. And I also want to make sure I'm covering the entirety of these decals, because I don't want any of them to repel the resin I do end up using. That's going to dry for about an hour before I start the next step. So this is how I end up just highlighting the grip tape, and I did realize fairly soon after starting with the purple pinstriping that I did not press record. So sorry, but you can see what I did there along the top and the bottom. I do a full outline of both pieces of that grip tape in this really thin purple glitter vinyl, and I do end up sealing the crap out of this as well, which doesn't quite work. You'll see that a little bit later, unfortunately. I also redid the top rim. I had done orange mica powder, and I just didn't like the way it looked. It looked really messy. So I chucked that idea and I went in with some black alcohol ink instead. I think it looks much better. It's time for the next coat of resin. This is M&G Supply Co.'s glass coat. I don't think I used the speed dry for this. I'm pretty sure this is just the regular setting glass coat. And I end up using about 15 milliliters total. It's at about this point that I realized two parts of the pinstriping over the grip tape have started to lift. I'm highly upset about this because I sealed that stuff 3 different times and it still lifted. But I have to run with it, so I decide to use orange glitter in the rest of that resin, and I just make sort of galaxy swirls. I spread them out a little with my finger, and that helps to camouflage them. I'm still going to have some sanding to do later on, and one more final coat. I let this spin for about 8 hours, and it was all done. This is my finished cup. As I said, I will have to go in and do some extra sanding and one more final coat of epoxy, but for now, I think it's amazing. I love this tumbler so much. It's the perfect symbol of my favorite baseball team and one of my all-time favorite players, and who knows, maybe it'll end up being a good luck charm. They could definitely use a good luck charm right about now. Check out that glitter booty. It's extra pretty with the flash on. I hope you like this baseball bat tumbler, and thanks for sticking around. I know this video was a little longer than normal, but I hope you got something out of it. Have an awesome rest of your day. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, my kitschy cats and kittens, and I'll see you soon.